Hello again, fight fans. You're watching the Neutral Corner for Boxing Monthly for the week of February 11th. And I am a sexy motherfucker. I know this is a boxing show, but real quick shout out to the Super Bowl. And I get it. A lot of people outside of America don't understand what all the fuss is about. American football, that is the sport now in America. It's the biggest sport here in the United States, and the Super Bowl is the biggest sporting event of the year. Sometimes, in fact, a lot of times, it doesn't live up to the hype. It's just kind of like the big fights. Sometimes the biggest matchups don't quite live up to the hype because it ends up being a mismatch. You have the best team from this conference, the best team from that conference, and sometimes one conference is weaker than the other, and you just get a mismatch in the championship game. But this year, the Super Bowl was amazing. Probably the best Super Bowl I've ever seen that I can think of in my lifetime. And there's been a few good ones, but this one, man, just an insane comeback by the New England Patriots. And look, I predicted the Atlanta Falcons were going to win by about a touchdown, and I thought I was so damn smart through the first half. Through the first 2.5 quarters, I thought I was so damn smart. Even through the first 3 quarters, I was feeling comfortable. But once the Patriots got up to within like a touchdown, I knew it was it. That was it, you know? And I think they had to get like 2 touchdowns, a field goal, 2-point conversions, something crazy like that, and then go to overtime and then still win it. And they did all that. So look, a couple things. Bill Belichick is the best coach of all time in football. Tom Brady is the best quarterback of all time. This was probably the best Super Bowl of all time, and the New England Patriots, this team collectively over the last 10, 15 years or so, is the best team in the history of the NFL. Yeah, I said it. And you know what? I'm not even a huge New England Patriots guy, but game. 5 freaking Super Bowls, man. That's just insane. And I'm one of those guys that doesn't get that excited about the Super Bowl. Like here in America, a lot of casual football fans watch because of the commercials, and all the commercials suck, and they were so overly politicized. And the halftime show, I don't give a shit about Lady Gaga. Last year was Beyonce's overrated stupid ass. I don't care about any of that crap. I also don't care for all the politicizing of the games that I saw on Twitter. I just looked up a few hashtags after each quarter, particularly at halftime, and some of the stuff I saw out there was ridiculously stupid. And in the days after the game, from some of the usual suspects in the media and just some of the talking heads, idiots, politicizing the game, it's all just a shame. The commercialization of it, the politicizing of it, it was a great freaking game, and that's all it should matter. But that's enough football. Let's get back to boxing news and notes. Okay, so this news, I think, is good news. The fight between Miguel Cotto and James Kirkland is off. Apparently, James Kirkland broke his nose in sparring. And if you're a boxer, professional boxer who's sparred seemingly hundreds, thousands of rounds in your life, you shouldn't break your damn nose sparring. That tells me that Kirkland's fat ass has been sitting around getting fat. And were you wearing headgear? You know, what kind of punches were you taking? How sloppy were you? Where you were taking a shot to the nose so bad that you fractured your nose? This tells me either that the injury just shows how bad Kirkland was. And again, neither Kirkland or Cotto has fought since 2015. But I think for Kirkland, it was, I think, May of 2015. It might have been earlier than that, but I think May of 2015 when he got destroyed by Canelo Alvarez. And then Cotto, the last time he fought was the end of 2015 against Canelo. But it was either that Kirkland was just so badly out of shape and he's faded so much, or the injury is complete bullshit. And it's a minor injury that they could get past, but they were looking for any excuse to cancel this fight, because I can tell you right now that ticket sales were shit and fan interest was shit. But more than that, media interest was shit. Some of the people connected to the promotion were really reaching out. Some people that normally are very, very quiet with certain promotions. With this promotion, man, they were really reaching out, trying to get anybody to go to some of the media events around this thing, and they couldn't get people to go. Nobody gave a shit. So I just think that This is a win for boxing. Look, was it going to be an action fight for the 3 rounds it lasted? Sure, if you're into that kind of thing, but it wouldn't have proven a damn thing. So I think fans win here. It's good for boxing. It's good for HBO because even though this is going to be HBO pay-per-view, it wasn't going to be a regular date. There's still a certain amount of money that goes into promoting the pay-per-view and everything. They've already put up a few bucks, but they're going to save a little bit of money here and save a date that maybe they can use later on down the year. It's a win for Rock Nation though, because they have to pay out Miguel Cotto a certain guaranteed purse, right? And it's a lot of freaking money. It's 8 figures, and this promotion was not going to bring that in. So they were going to take an absolute bath on this fight. They did pretty well. They made a little bit of money on the Cotto-Canelo fight not last year, but a year and a half ago now. And that's pretty much the only fight Rock Nation's made money on that they've done so far. Okay, so they're just taking one bath after another, but none bigger than the ones they're taking with Cotto because he's got the biggest guaranteed purse, and this was going to be a massive, massive loss. Now they're talking about possibly Cotto could fight Kell Brook. Eddie Hearn over in London has thrown a ton of money at Cotto, so he'd be getting that guaranteed rate plus some extra change to fight Kell Brook. Does Miguel Cotto want to fight somebody like Kell Brook at this point and possibly get stopped? Which could very well happen if Brook is anywhere near the form he was before Triple G. I don't know if he wants any part of that. There's also talk, rumors, Juan Manuel Marquez. Does Juan Manuel Marquez want to move up to 154 pounds? I don't think so, even without VADA testing. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But I don't see that happening. So I don't know where the hell Cotto goes from here. This is good for Kirkland. I know it would have been a payday, but he was going to get even further damaged. He's already slurring his words. He was never a genius to begin with. If you look at some of the life choices he's made, this isn't going to end well with James Kirkland. This was just going to exacerbate things. So I look at this as good news. Don't worry about all the internet rumors right now on Twitter and stuff going back and forth about Miguel Cotto and Kell Brook. Chill with some of that. Maybe it happens, and if it does happen, and especially if it goes to the UK, that's a big fight. But speaking of Kell Brook, there was supposed to be a purse bid between him, the sanctioning organization, and Errol Spence's people. Of course, Errol Spence's is mandatory for that title he still holds at welterweight. And they were supposed to have a purse bid. Well, that's been pushed back a week because apparently a deal is very, very close. So some of the talk you're hearing about Miguel Cotto possibly fighting Kell Brook, that might be a way to get Errol Spence's people to sign the dotted line if a deal is real close. Sometimes, Eddie Hearn is the master of the bait and switch, right? So, or maybe they're just trying to finalize the numbers. To me, Errol Spence obviously wants that fight more than Kell Brook. There's more money in it for Kell Brook to fight Cotto. So it's pretty obvious to me that it's been Kell Brook that's been delaying that fight. But maybe this is a way that they could kind of do a bait and switch and get a little more money out of Spence's people, or get one little sticking point in the negotiation to go their way, right? That's often how these things work. So from my money, I think we'll still see Kell Brook and Errol Spence if Brook can still make 147 pounds. If he and his team feel they can't, maybe they go after Cotto. If they want the money, obviously they're going after Cotto. But there's just too much, there's too many variables, too many moving parts. You can't say one way or another, so let's let all that go for right now. More to come on that. Canelo-Chavez has officially now, they have a venue and it's T-Mobile Arena. I told you guys when I did a rant video on this when it was signed, a month ago, that it was going to be in T-Mobile Arena. I knew then it was going to go there. That was one where, a little inside information, I knew where the hell that shit was going, but it was also common sense. And I get it. If they did this at AT&T Stadium where Canelo fought Liam Smith and did over 50,000 fans, I think Canelo-Chavez would do 80,000 fans easy. Possibly 100,000 if they price the tickets right. But 20,000 fans in T-Mobile Arena, and I do think this will sell out T-Mobile Arena, it will generate a bigger gate than 100,000 fans at AT&T Stadium in Dallas, Texas. And that's including if Jerry Jones puts up money. You guys you don't understand how much money the whales in the casinos, in the site fees and all that in Vegas put up. It puts up huge, huge numbers. The thing I hate about Vegas is, number one, it's a pain in the ass for us to get up to from LA, the drive and everything else, and it's a clusterfuck. And now they're charging for parking, and food's expensive, and alcohol, and all that kind of crap. But more than anything, the regular fans get priced out of going to these kind of fights. And you think back to to the 80s, there were big matchups in Vegas, at like Caesar's Palace and stuff. But they were priced to where a regular boxing fan who could afford to travel to Vegas could afford to go to the fight. It wasn't so bad compared to now. Now you got to, flying to Vegas is usually pretty cheap in most parts of the country because the Vegas people, they want to get you there. But the hotels, all the other costs associated with it for fans, that gets pricey. On top of that, the ticket to the fight. It's one thing if the nosebleeds tickets are $150, right? I'm saying the top row, $150, let's say. That's face value. But you'll have brokers gobble up 100 of those, or whatever the limit is, and it's different for every fight, but whatever the limit is, those guys will gobble up a bunch of tickets and sell them secondary market. So suddenly those $150 tickets go to $250. Now, if the demand isn't there, then those brokers won't buy those tickets. And then you'll start to see ticket prices drop. And that's when you can the real savvy fans can kind of watch the tickets and see what's happening. And then they know if and when they should buy a ticket to a Vegas fight. But a fight like this is going to sell out. So I just think a lot of regular fight fans are going to be shut out of being able to afford a ticket to that fight. And that sucks. One other quick tidbit here. Felix Verdejo, who I'll talk about in a second here. He is now, I believe, the mandatory for the winner of the WBO lightweight title match April 8th between Terry Flanagan and Peter Petrov. I think that's been mandated. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's what I heard, or I saw something on Twitter. So I'll talk more about him in a second, but that's enough with news and notes. There's a little bit of stuff to talk about that happened last week. Of course, last week was dominated by the Super Bowl, but there was some fight action last week, and there's some stuff coming up this month to preview as well. But real quick, let's get into the review of last week's stuff. Friday in Australia, Danny Green wins a majority decision over Anthony Mundine. This was technically a cruiserweight fight, even though Anthony Mundine weighed in, I think, 174.5 pounds. He's a light heavyweight. Danny Green, though, weighed 182 pounds. So technically, this is for his Australian cruiserweight title, which I think he won last year. I think this was his first defense. Anthony Mundine was deducted 1 point in the first round. Danny Green, 1 point in the seventh round, both times for illegal blows. The scores were 98-90, 96-94 in favor of Green, and one judge had it 94-94. The attendance was listed as almost 27,000. Of course, this was not the first time these two guys fought. They fought back in 2006 at super middleweight, and these guys had a bit of a grudge match. So this thing did big commercial success over there, but let's be honest, does this fight mean anything on the big stage globally in boxing? No. I do like these types of domestic grudge match type events. We're seeing a lot of them this year. There's something in the air with 2017. You got this one here in Australia, which just did big numbers. Coming up in the UK, Hay versus Bellew. That's a fight that means nothing for the heavyweight division, but it's going to be a big commercial success and do big numbers. And then I just talked about it, Canelo-Chavez. Here, even though it's going to be in the United States, it's the Battle of Mexico, quote unquote, in the United States. And that fight really doesn't mean anything it's going to be held at super middleweight, but neither of these guys, it doesn't mean shit at super middleweight, right? But it's going to do huge commercial success. So sometimes these domestic grudge match types of things are good for the sport overall. And you know, hey, if this was your cup of tea and you watched it and you enjoyed it, great. Does it mean anything? No. Do I particularly care about the fight? No. Moving on. That same day in Puerto Rico, Felix Verdejo wins a unanimous decision over Oliver Flores, and he improves to 23-0 with 15 knockouts. Here's the thing about Felix Verdejo. You go back a few years. I think 2014, he was my prospect of the year. I thought that he was on the cusp of being, I wasn't ready to anoint him the next Miguel Cotto or somebody like that, but he was going to be a guy that obviously the promoters were looking at him being the next possible Puerto Rican star, and they were going to groom him toward that. And he was at the point where he was done being a prospect. It was time to be a contender. And he just hasn't made that leap. He's kind of plateaued. He still looks like a prospect. He looks just uninspired. There's just nothing there. And now, look, he decisioned Oliver Flores, and he dominated the fight fine. But Flores, for those of you who don't know anything about him, he was KO'd by Takashi Uchiyama last year in 3 rounds. You go back to 2012, he was KO'd by Miguel Berchelt in 2 rounds. Okay? We saw what Berchelt just did. We know who Uchiyama is. Those are 2 good fighters. But, I mean, this was a young Miguel Berchelt that KO'd him in 2012. Think about that. 5 years ago, he KO'd Flores in 2 rounds. And this guy goes the distance with Felix Verdejo. So it's pretty much over for him. I talked about a second ago, he's probably in line for the winner between Terry Flanagan and Peter Petrov. Do you favor him in that fight? He's going to be the mandatory. So if Flanagan wins that fight and keeps his belt, Felix Verdejo is going to have to go over to the UK to fight him. Is he going to win a decision over there? I don't know. Does he have the style and the substance to even make it close and competitive with Flanagan? I don't know. If Peter Petrov wins, he's probably going to fight Petrov in the United States and probably in New York. That's going to be a more favorable environment for him. But Petrov has shown a lot of improvement in recent years. I don't favor him against either of those fighters right now, against Flanagan or Petrov. It's just based on what I see, man. Also Friday here in Los Angeles, there was LA Fight Club. You guys know I talked about that last week. I was ringside for this one. It was a lot of fun. I think it was only 4 fights. 4 undefeated prospects, kept their records intact, their undefeated records. And make no mistake, guys, these are prospects. These are guys with 4, 5, 6, 7 fights usually. And yeah, they're in there against guys who have records that are 2-3 or 4-7. They're prospects and they're developing. But a couple of these guys looked really, really good. Joshua Franco, who's a super flyweight, and Ryan Garcia, who's a lightweight, both scored very impressive knockouts. Go find some of the footage of those 2 guys on either Golden Boy's YouTube or look on Ring TV or one of those. You'll find video of it. I posted an article for Boxing News 24 and we embedded some videos of those performances. But Joshua Franco and Ryan Garcia, 2 exciting prospects worth checking out if you are into checking out boxing prospects and trying to figure out who's going to be the next big thing. These are 2 guys to keep an eye on, man. Saturday, Chris Eubank, 10th round TKO over, I don't know. I don't care. The fight was meaningless. I understand that a lot of people like Chris Eubank. Steve Kim actually wrote about this in a column that he did, and he talked about a few different things, but he talked about Chris Eubank for a second. And he just said he's one of those guys that looks better in the gym than he does in the ring. And that's exactly what I see. And it's something I see with a lot of fighters now, particularly the quote-unquote athletic fighters, athletic-looking fighters, guys who are really jacked, guys who do these 40-punch combinations on the focus mitts. And that stuff looks impressive. It looks really, really cool when you could do all kinds of tricks on the jump rope, especially when you're 5'9" and you have a 14-foot jump rope. You could do all kinds of crazy shit with it. Good for you, man. Cool story, bro. How do you fight in the ring? And just from what we saw with Chris Eubank against Billy Joe Saunders, who you guys know how I feel about him, going back a few years now, he's done nothing since then. He's talked a lot. He's looked impressive against completely overmatched opponents, but he's done little more than look good where he's supposed to look good and talk a lot. He hasn't proven shit. As Steve Kim would say, he's all sizzle, no steak at this point. But that's it for the action last week. As I said, it was kind of quiet because everything was dominated by the Super Bowl. But we got some good fights coming up this Friday. Let's check out those. Let's review those fights. This Friday, we got another solid PBC card here in Ohio, in the Huntington Center in Toledo, Ohio, featuring 3 fighters who are based out of Ohio. I think 2 of these guys are actually from Ohio. One's from New York and lives in Ohio now. But Rau'shee Warren, who I used to cover in the World Series of Boxing here when he was on the Los Angeles Matadors. He was pretty much like the captain of that team when they were around. He was the best fighter on that team. He's now 14-1 as a pro with only 4 knockouts. He won the WBA and IBO bantamweight titles last June against Juan Carlos Payano, avenging a loss. There was a rematch between those fighters. He's defending his titles against a Kazakh fighter who has the WBA interim title that he won back in 2015, Zanat Zakhayanov, who's 26-1 with 18 knockouts. I think that this will be a good, tough challenge. Here's the thing with Warren. He fought in the amateurs way too long. He fights too much of an amateur style. He's made some adjustments. In that second fight with Payano, he showed a little more of a pro style, but he still pity-pats with his punches. He hits focus mitts too much in the gym. Probably doesn't do enough hard sparring. Probably doesn't work the heavy bag enough. And he just doesn't have knockout power. As I mentioned, 4 knockouts in 15 pro fights, and he's fought mostly scrubs. He should have a lot more stoppages if he had average power. So that limited power is gonna hold him back, and he's only gonna go so far with it. So I think that Zakhayanov is a very live dog in this fight, although he hasn't really fought much of anybody either. I definitely think that you could see an upset special here. It's in Ohio, you never know, but hey man, Zakhayanov can maybe put some heat on him, put some leather on him, and change this fight with one big punch. It'll be interesting to see. But to me, the fight that I want to see on this one, Robert Easter Jr. going up against Luis Cruz, a Puerto Rican fighter. This is for the IBF lightweight title. Robert Easter Jr. is 18-0, 14 knockouts. He beat Richard Commey by split decision last September to grab this title. Luis Cruz is 22-4-1 with 16 knockouts. Actually, you know, his last 8 fights, 3-4-1. So I don't expect much of a challenge from Cruz. He hasn't looked good in his recent fights. This is kind of a showcase fight for Easter. But he came off that tough split decision against Commey. And this is kind of a homecoming for him. This is kind of a showcase fight. And I want to see if Easter delivers on that. You know, because he has the look where he might be somebody. He might be... I saw him kind of growing up and learning on the job in finding himself in that fight against Commey. And I want to see if that continues in this fight. So that's why I'm interested in this one, because I'm interested in Easter. Also on this fight, Jamel Herring going up against Art Hovhannisyan. Some of these Armenian names are tough, man. Jamel is 15-1 with 8 knockouts. Art is 17-3-3 with 9 knockouts. For Herring, he had a TKO loss to Denis Shafikov last July. He's originally from New York, lives in Ohio now. So this is kind of him trying to get back into the win column, trying to rehabilitate him after that loss to Shafikov. For Art, he is an Armenian-born fighter now based in Glendale, California. That's a suburb maybe 10 miles from downtown LA. He's 2-3-1 in his last 6, but he's never been stopped. So this is not necessarily a showcase fight for Jamel Herring. I think this is a confidence builder. I think he should win this fight by decision, but I don't see him stopping his opponent. If he does, that'd be a big, big statement. But all in all, this is a nice little triple header. The schedule's kind of dead right now, right? It's kind of dead toward the end of February. And then when we get into March, things start really cooking. But, you know, it's a little bit of a dead spot. We've got a couple of fights here and there that are pretty good. I like this card, though. But let me know what you guys think. Comment, like, share, subscribe. Watch my video. Like it. Love it. Send it to your friends. I'll see you guys at the fights.